30 years ago, I attended a master class with the great jazz guitarist Joe Diorio. And he said something that day with regard to practicing and organizing your time around that. He said something that has stuck with me all these years. It's something I've recommended to lots of my students. And so I want to share it here and talk about it a little bit. The thing that he said was, however much time you spend in a day practicing, you should spend an equal amount of time just listening. So let's say you have an hour and you're working on scales, arpeggios, chord forms, all of the stuff under the umbrella of practice. Then for another hour, and it doesn't necessarily have to be back-to-back hours, but in the day, you've got your hour of practice time. You should also spend an hour where you put your guitar down and you just listen to the music. Now, when I recommend this to students, one question that I get over and over, of course, is, what am I listening for? What am I supposed to be doing? I want to do this right, but just to say listen, what am I listening for? So that's what I want to talk about here. One record that I've really been into lately is a record by the saxophonist John Coltrane. It's called Ballads. It's from 1963. Coltrane plays tenor saxophone on this record. There's also piano, bass, and drums. That was his quartet. I think this is a good record to listen to and to make a study of, especially if you are new at this idea of just sitting and listening. Because when you listen to this record, a lot of stuff is constant throughout it. The instrumentation that I just described is the same throughout. There's 4 guys playing. There's no overdubs. And the stereo spread is constant. So the saxophone is always in the left channel, the drums are in the right channel, and piano and bass are in the middle. So as you listen from song to song, one thing that you don't have to worry too much about is, where is the saxophone, or what is that other sound I'm hearing? Like everything you hear, it's as if you are in the room with this group. Of course, this is not the case for all records, but this record, that's how it is. So I think it's a good one to start with. Also, the record is called Ballads, and they're all ballads. So there's a lot of tunes in a relatively slow tempo, kind of in the high 50s, low 60s BPM range. With the constants that I mentioned, what's changing and what can we focus on and what could we maybe learn from, so that when we go to play music with people, we've got maybe a broader palette of ideas and things to work with and play with. So I made a spreadsheet, and it has 5 columns on it. This is what's there. Intro. So with each of these songs, is there an intro? And if so, what is it? Like, does the song just start, or is there some kind of setup? Outro. Similar idea. Does the song just end, or is there something that happens at the end that makes it feel more like an arrangement, The tempo. I wanted to know what was the beats per minute when the band locked into a tempo, and also, is it in tempo throughout the song, throughout the arrangement, or does it maybe start out of tempo and then get into tempo? Because that can add some drama to the arrangement. So intro, outro, tempo. Oh, solos. I wanted to know who soloed on each song and for how long. And then the key. So, are all of the songs on this record in one key? Are they in different keys? For that, I had to pick up my guitar and work it out. I don't have perfect pitch. I can't just listen to a whole album and say, okay, that song's in F minor, that song's in G. I did pick up my guitar for that, but Then I put it back down. Hey, cutting in here just for a moment to add something that I intended to say when I first shot this, which is that listening is really a lifetime practice. You can keep going back to old records that you thought you had already taken apart, and you'll hear new things. For example, you might listen to a recording and notice, oh yeah, that 6th chord is usually minor, but that one time the pianist played it as a dominant chord, and I can hear that now. I couldn't hear that before. And then maybe you return to that record a little while later and you realize, oh, that dominant chord has a flat 9 on it and a natural 13. I hear that now. And then maybe you go back and revisit that same record and you notice, oh yeah, I can hear that the pianist is using this particular scale or this pair of triads to articulate that dominant 13 flat 9 chord. Those are just some examples of things that I've experienced where I hear more and more as I go back to things over time. As you continue to grow as a musician, more of those details will become evident to you. So just hear what you can for now. And that's one of the reasons I chose to focus on things like, is there an intro? Is there an outro? What key are we in? Who takes a solo? I think those things are accessible to lots of players at lots of levels. So you don't have to hear everything all at once. Okay, I just wanted to say that. It was really interesting, I thought, to see how many different ways in and out of ballads Coltrane and his quartet found to keep this record interesting. It wouldn't be a particularly interesting record if everything followed the same template, and sure enough, it does not. So there are songs where it just starts at the top and everybody's in. There are songs that start with just the piano up front, playing kind of a free time intro for 8 bars or 16 bars, and then the band comes in. There's one song called All or Nothing at All that just starts with the drums, Elvin Jones playing this incredible feel on the drums, and then the bass comes in, and then the piano comes in. So Coltrane is the last to enter on that one, and that's really interesting because most of the record he's in from the top, except for also these couple of that I mentioned with piano intros. So that's cool, that the star really of the show isn't in the first thing that you notice in each one of these. A thing that I didn't have a column for, but that you would notice if you listened to this record and made the notes that I made, is that most of the songs are maybe 3.5, 4 minutes long, maybe 5 on the long side. When you're playing a song that's a ballad that's 32 bars long, and that was pretty common for this kind of song, kind of Great American Songbook, tunes written in the 40s, 30s, 40s, whatever. So 32 bars at 60 beats per minute. You can do the math, but on a lot of these it takes 1.5 minutes or more just to get through the melody of the song one time. And if you're only going to, record something that's 4 minutes long and it takes you 1.5 minutes just to state the melody, and also it's very typical in jazz to restate the melody or at least part of it at the end, the solos are relatively short. The bulk of this record is melody. If you're familiar with John Coltrane, you probably think of him as this really dynamic, sort of wild yet controlled improviser. That's really what he's known for, is his improvising. And on this record, there's not a lot of that. He's playing the melody, and he doesn't even do a lot to, decorate or he doesn't. He plays the melodies pretty straight. And you can do that when you have a beautiful sound and you have confidence and clarity of vision. It's fine to just play the melody. and then play a short solo, or give it to the pianist for a short solo, and then bring the melody back. There's no need to overly gussy up the melody. These are good tunes. They picked these tunes to record, so they play the tunes. The outros were cool to see how many different ways there could be to end a song. That's something I think a lot of people overlook when they are performing jazz tunes. I mean, when I say a lot of people, I mean a lot of not the stars, not the super professional players, but when you see folks just playing jazz in a small club or a bar, endings tend to kind of all be the same, or they just don't think about them. Clearly, when you're making a record, you do have to think about those things. And it's neat to see some of them have a vamp ending, where you get to the end and you just play over the last two chords for a while. There's on this song, All or Nothing at All, it starts with the drums, and then at the end it kind of breaks down and gets to just the drums again. It's almost like a live fade, but really it's like just a dissolve. It's really cool. Some songs have cadenzas, so you get to the end of a song. This is on I Wish I Knew. It's in G, and at the end there's this little G major 7, C major 7, G major 7, C9, and then finally G major 7. And Coltrane just plays over that a little bit out of time. That's called a cadenza, which is improvised intro, or more commonly an ending. There's another one where Coltrane, this is on It's Easy to Remember. The song is in E flat, and we get to the end, and it ends on E flat, and Coltrane holds this note, E flat, and then behind him the band plays B, A major 7 flat 5, A flat, G flat 6, E major 7, D flat major 9, and then E flat. I'll do it again without talking, and you can just hear it. So we go. So did you get where all that harmony came from? If you just saw those chords on a page, you might wonder, what is happening? Where does all that come from? But they're just chords that have that E flat. The Coltrane is sustaining that note, and this is just a series of chords that support that note. You could choose other chords, but these are the chords that they chose. That's really beautiful, I think. That part I just made up. That's not on the record. So notice these things. Notice how songs start, how they end, who solos, how long they solo, what is the tempo, and is it in tempo throughout, or does it come in and out of tempo? And what are the keys? Those are the things I noticed. You could make your own spreadsheet and your own columns and adapt them to whatever it is that you are interested in. What would be in your columns? What would be the stuff that you would want to notice? I'd be curious. You can put that in the comments if you like. So that's my study of John Coltrane ballads, and thanks to Joe Diorio for suggesting that we listen. I'm Adam Levy. Until next time, stay tuned and take good care.